everyone, welcome to a brand new video of High Point. So we have already discussed and learned about many of the plays written by Shakespeare and as well as many other Elizabethan dramatists, and about Elizabethan literature we have done many videos. So if you have not yet watched them, you can find that in the I button there, so you can click there and watch the whole video session that we have so far covered. So in this video we will be looking at another tragedy by William Shakespeare, Macbeth, which he produced in the year 1606. So let's begin our new video session without any delay. So yeah, like I said, Macbeth was produced by William Shakespeare in the year 1606. Let's see an introduction about the play. The full title of the play is The Tragedy of Macbeth, and it was first published in the folio of 1623. So this was a question, always a frequent question. When did the first folio of Shakespearean plays appeared? So the year is 1623. So Macbeth got a place in the first folio which came out in 1623, and this is one of Shakespeare's shortest tragedy, and this is the shortest tragedy by William Shakespeare. Which is the longest tragedy or longest play by William Shakespeare? It is Hamlet. I hope you remember that. And it dramatizes the damaging physical and psychological effects of political ambition on those who seek power for its own sake. So the character here, the title character, seeks ambitious. He is acting ambitious, and he cherishes for a power that is actually intended, not possessed by him. Intended to possessed by him. So he makes his own plans and schemes and drives towards that ambition, and that actually finally damaged his own life. That actually because of that desire for power made him to meet with his horrible end. And Shakespeare wrote this particular work, this play, during the reign of James I. So after Queen Elizabeth, who ruled over England, James I from 1603 to 1625, that when we discussed the introductory video session, which was particularly dedicated to Elizabethan literature, its socio-political background, then there I have mentioned it. So if you have not watched that first video of this particular series, then you can go and watch. So Shakespeare has written this particular play, Macbeth, during the reign of rule of James I. Now let's see the character list. Duncan, King of Scotland. So the territory in which the play is happening is Scotland. Okay, King Lear was in England, but Macbeth is in Scotland, and Hamlet is in Denmark. Remember that. So Duncan, King of Scotland, Malcolm and Donalbain, these two are Duncan's sons, and Macbeth and Banquet, these two are the generals of King's army. Macduff, Lennox, Rose, Menteith, Angus, Katniss. See, these are the noblemen. Please remember Macduff in particular. Then Fleance, son of Banquet, remember him as well. Then Siward is Earl of Northumberland, general to the English forces. Then young Siward is his son. Then Satan is an officer attending on Macbeth, son of Macduff. Then an English doctor, a soldier, a porter, an old man. Lady Macbeth is there, who is an important character. Lady Macduff, gentlewoman attending Lady Macbeth. Then Hecate, 3 witches. Hecate is actually the queen of witches. Then lords, gentlemen, officers, soldiers, murderers, attendants and messengers. The ghost of Banquet, appearance of ghost of Banquet is there too. So please remember these characters, at least the important characters. You have to remember to make you memorize the plot of the play, which is very important for at least you to make clever judgments about the question answers in the exam while you are writing exam. So let's move on to the detailed summary of the play. We will have scene wise and act wise summary. So if you are with a pen and paper, then at least make a note of the important characters as well as important events happening in each act. I won't ask you to write each and every line that you can find in the screen, but still you can mention the important events happening. Okay. So Act 1, Scene 1, the play opens with the meeting of the witches in the desert heath. So if you have learned, you already know that the play opens with in a desert, wild heath, and three witches meeting there. One of the witches says that they will have to meet Macbeth. So one of the witches says that they have to meet Macbeth. Their mission is there to meet Macbeth, and as they depart, they say fair is foul. So basically, they reveal that they are going to meet Macbeth there soon, and also they actually creates and set the mood of the play. It's going to be a tragedy from the scene itself, first scene itself. We are revealed from this dark mood and setting that it is going to be a tragedy. And also while they depart, they say that fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. So this is the departed line that they pronounce together. Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. So this line we can find towards the end of Scene 1, Act 1. Now, Scene 1, Act 2, a sergeant delivers a rapport of the battlefield before King Duncan and his sons and noblemen of Scotland. So, a battle is going on, and King Duncan was reported by a sergeant about the progress of the battle, what is happening in the battlefield and on. Before the king and his sons Malcolm and Donalbain is there, and some noblemen of Scotland also present there with the king, and the sergeant comes and report the things happening in the battlefield. Rose reveals the treachery of Thane of Cawdor. Rose, another nobleman of Scotland, Rose reveals that Thane of Cawdor treachered them, and the king pronounced the death sentence on him. In his place, confers the title of Thane of Cawdor on Macbeth. So next we have Act 1, Scene 3. So the three witches meet again in the heath and revealed that they were doing before coming there, displaying their evil nature. So again these three witches, they met each other in the heath, and they actually after meeting they shared where they have been before coming here, what was the filthy thing they were doing. The evil nature got revealed through their actions as they were explaining it. And Macbeth and Banquet is introduced, and Macbeth's first words are, so Macbeth and Banquet, they were returning from the battlefield through wild forest place, wild heath place, and here Macbeth's first words, as soon as he was introduced, Macbeth's first words are so reflective, like it is actually very important. So he first sentence that he says is that, so foul and fair a day I have not seen. So foul and fair a day I have not seen. See, this is actually echoing the departing words of the witches in the first scene of Act 1, like fair is foul, foul is fair, and all. So that line is actually echoing in Macbeth's first word as so foul and fair a day I have not seen. And the witches appears before them, and Macbeth is excited about them. See, he was so excited about them, but Banquet was not giving much importance to witches, that we can see later. So the witches appeared before them, and Macbeth is so excited about them. The witches shower honors on Macbeth. So they were addressing Macbeth. That actually puzzled Macbeth, because they hailed him as Thane of Glamis, that already he is, and Thane of Cawdor. He has no idea that the king has conferred the title Thane of Cawdor over him, and the King of Scotland. So in these three ways, in the calling in these three titles, these witches hailed Macbeth, that actually puzzled him. Macbeth was surprised by it, while Banquet wondered why should Macbeth take them seriously. Then Banquet asked the witches whether they have anything to tell about him. They hail him and prophesied that he should be lesser than Macbeth, but greater, and not so happy, yet much happier shall get kings to be none. So it was like, when Banquet asked them whether they have anything to tell about him, they also hailed Banquet, and they also professed that you will be, while you are living, you will be less than Macbeth, but you are greater, because in nobility you will be greater than Macbeth. As a good worthy person, you are greater than Macbeth anyway. You will be not so happy now, but you will be happier later. Why? Because your sons are going to be kings of Scotland. Even though you yourself won't be the king of Scotland, you shall get kings. How? Your sons will be the kings of Scotland. Okay. So as soon as this, the witches departed, but Macbeth wanted them some more time to get confirmation about the prophecies. So Macbeth was skeptical, and he was excited and wondered and surprised, and he was called as the, or hailed as the king of Scotland, while already King Duncan is the king of Scotland, and there he has two full grown sons, and there is no way that Macbeth can be the king of Scotland. So it was actually puzzling situation for Macbeth. So that's how the seed was actually sowed in his mind to become the king of Scotland. So he wanted the witches to be there for longer, so that he may get some confirmation about the prophecies. As he was wondering about it, Rose comes and reveals to Macbeth that he was conferred with the title Thane of Cawdor. And Banquet was surprised, but Macbeth thought that, Banquet, just now they heard from the witches Macbeth was hailed as Thane of Cawdor, and now Rose, after that moment, Rose comes and reveals that king has made him Thane of Cawdor. So Banquet was surprised, but Macbeth, another kind of thoughts were going on inside Macbeth. He thought that if the first prophecy comes true, then one day he must be the king of Scotland too. And Macbeth tells his gratitude to Rose and the king, and Macbeth is thinking and possessed by the prophecies. And Banquet is not serious about the prophecies, while one among them is already true. The king and other noble men waits Macbeth and Banquet's return from the battlefield, and as soon as they arrived, the king honored them. So even though they already know about the titles conferred to Macbeth, the king and the noblemen, they were waiting in the tent to for the return of Macbeth and Banquet from the battlefield, and they were both valorous and brave in the battlefield, showing their caliber in art of battle, art of war. And as soon as they arrived, the king honored them. Both of them promised their service to the king and the country. Duncan expresses his desire to stay at Macbeth Castle at Inverness. It's a great honor for any nobleman, for a king to come to their castle and stay there, because the king trusts that person that much. That's why he takes the risk to come there and stay there in that castle. So Duncan expresses his desire to stay at Macbeth Castle at Inverness. And Macbeth gets his permission to go in advance to make necessary preparations to receive them. Then Act 1 Scene 5 begins there. The scene opens with Lady Macbeth reading a letter from her husband detailing about the prophecies of the witches and things happened. So before Macbeth heads towards Inverness, his castle, he wrote a letter to Lady Macbeth, and Lady Macbeth is even a cunning person. And Lady Macbeth, she was reading when the scene 5 opens. She was reading that letter from her husband, and in that letter everything is in detail there, like about the prophecies by the witches, and how the first prophecy by the witches came into being, and all other things happen, and king's arrival to the castle as well. The response of Lady Macbeth terrifies us, that is, she is determined to make her husband the king. So after reading the letter, she thinks over that in her soliloquy. She says that, Lady Macbeth, she is also taking these prophecies very seriously, and Lady Macbeth's response after reading the letter is quite shocking for the audience, because she is determined to make her husband a king. And in her soliloquy, she reveals about the ambiguities of Macbeth's mind. So Macbeth, even though he is very brave and valorous in the battlefield, when it mentally he is not that strong to be and stay with a decision that was made by him. So if she says to kill Duncan and be the next king of Scotland, maybe Macbeth's mind will be little bit ambiguity will be there, and also confusing will be Macbeth's mind. Why? Because there is a milk of kindness that is there in Macbeth's mind. It is not fully evil. So that's actually worries her. and he convinced that the only way left for them is to murder King Duncan. And Macbeth arrives. She tells her plan of murdering Duncan. This initially surprises Macbeth, but later convinced by her. So like she was expecting, when Macbeth arrived, she revealed her plan for Macbeth to be the king of Scotland, to murder King Duncan. But Duncan is like a father to Macbeth, and Duncan completely trusts Macbeth. That's why Duncan is planning to come and stay in Inverness with them. So Macbeth cannot think about killing Duncan initially, because even though he wanted to be the king of Scotland, he actually didn't think about killing Duncan. Okay, so it was from her mouth that he is hearing this plan first, and it shocked him, and Macbeth later convinced by her. And she commands Macbeth, you don't have to do anything, you just have to commit the murder, everything else I'll be taking care. So she commands Macbeth to leave everything to her, only he has to carry out the action, that's all. So scene 5 ends there. Scene 6 of Act 1 starts, and Lady Macbeth and her husband together welcome the king and the nobleman of Scotland when they arrived in Inverness. And Duncan was felt very comfortable and secured in the castle of Macbeth. Act 1, Scene 7, the banquet is in progress. So the king has come to the place, so a great banquet is going to happen, so that is in progress, and Macbeth has slipped away from his guest, and his soliloquy follows. So as banquet is progressing, and as a host, Macbeth should be present there in that banquet, but he cannot hold himself there, because a great horrible plan is lurking in his mind. What is going to happen in this night is something very horrible. Everyone will get shocked in the next morning, that he knows. So Macbeth, he slipped from his guest in that banquet hall, and he made a soliloquy there, and he tells about his fears of doing such a horrible deed and the treachery that he is going to commit towards Duncan, who is there with double trust, and he is also a good person. So Duncan is a good king as well as a good person, and Duncan is there with, he is trusting everything that Macbeth provides there, the food, the items, the wine, the chamber for him to sleep. So he is actually there with a double trust upon Macbeth. So he is actually going to commit a treachery towards the king and the kingdom. So he fears and he feels horrible to do such a deed towards a person like Duncan. And Lady Macbeth comes there, and he tells to her to revoke the plan, but she didn't hear him and calls him a coward. So Lady Macbeth, she was expecting this confusion from Macbeth. So Macbeth wanted to revoke this plan, and let Duncan be the king of Scotland whenever everything happens. Naturally, if there anything going to happen naturally, then I'll be the king of the Scotland. Otherwise, there is no need to do anything horrible like this. But Lady Macbeth, she already knows that Macbeth is going to be like this, confusing as well as desiring and ambitious. So she didn't hear anything from him, and also called him a coward, because that is a great insult, because he is such a brave soldier in the battlefield. And this provoked him. So calling him a coward actually provoked him, and he returned to his determination to carry out the plan. And Lady Macbeth, who knows the weakness of Macbeth, calmly again explains everything to him again. So there ends Act 1 of the play. Now we have Act 2, Scene 1. Banquo, Fleance and Macbeth meet, and Banquo says that he has dreamed of the witches, but Macbeth immediately replies that he did not think of them. So Banquo is being very honest and straight, but Macbeth is pretending that he has already forgot all about that, because king is there, he is very busy, and he has nothing like that in his mind. He is actually already forgot about all these witches and their prophecies and all. After they depart, Macbeth reveals about his double-minded in a soliloquy. So Macbeth again another soliloquy followed by him, the dagger scene. So in this soliloquy we have the dagger scene. Please remember that in Act 2, Scene 1 we have the dagger scene in Macbeth. So he sees a dagger in the air. So with that dagger he has to commit the murder of Duncan. So he is fearful and horrified in his heart of heart. So he reveals his double-mindedness to carry out should I carry out this act or I should not carry out this act. Anyway, murdering a person is a horrible thing to do if it is a good person too. So the dagger scene followed by his soliloquy, and he sees a dagger in the air and runs after it and soon realizes that it is just an illusion. So in his illusion only he sees the dagger in that air. It is not a real dagger. Act second, scene second. Lady Macbeth arranges everything and she drugs the guards of Duncan so that Macbeth could carry out the plan safely. So being the king, Duncan will be always guarded, right? So Lady Macbeth, as part of the banquet and as part of the general enjoyment and entertainment, she arranges everything and she drugs the guards of Duncan so that they could sleep and Macbeth could carry out his plan safely without anyone's doubt. So Macbeth comes and declared that he has committed the deed and killed the sleeping king. In scene second of act second, Macbeth kills King Duncan. He heard some voice saying Macbeth has killed sleep. Okay, so as soon as he committed this crime of killing a sleeping good King Duncan, he heard the voice somewhere he heard the voice saying Macbeth has killed sleep, and he regretted and he was sad about what he has done. Now he cannot revoke it, but he simply could only regret and be sad about what he has done. And since Macbeth brought the dagger with him, Lady Macbeth offers to take it and plant them near the guards to show that guards did this horrible deed. So, it was their plan that after killing Duncan, Macbeth should leave the dagger along with the guards, so that in the next morning when they find the blood-stained dagger with the guards, everyone will be believing that the guards have done this horrible deed. But Macbeth brought the dagger with him. So Lady Macbeth took that dagger from Macbeth and put them near the guards to show that guards did this horrible deed. And Macbeth is fearful about even when he heard a knock, and his psychology is affected by the treachery that he has committed. So mentally he was so disturbed, and his mental health is affected by the horrible deed that he committed, that inside his heart he knows that he committed something really evil and horrible. Okay. Then act second, scene 3. So here the comic relief scene. After the climax in Shakespearean drama, we will have a comic relief scene in order to heighten the effect of tragedy. The comic relief scene is here in Macbeth is the Potter scene. And he describes the door of the castle. So the Potter is there who is actually guarding, who has to supposed to open the gate, castle's door whenever someone comes and whenever someone wants to exit out of the door. So the Potter, he's a busy person, he acts like a busy person, and he describes the door of the castle as the door of the hell, and describes humorously a farmer, an equivocator, and an English tailor who have been condemned to hell. So he is telling many humorous things, and he imagines many things, and he humorously presents a farmer as an equivocator, and he actually tells about the punishments that they are going to get there in that hell and all. And he opens the gate and Macbeth and Lennox enter. So actually Potter heard a knock. So upon hearing that, the Potter says that he is a very busy person, he cannot even go and pee for himself. So after making all these comments and dialogues, he opens the gate, and we can see Macbeth and Lennox are entering, and Macbeth goes to wake the king while Lennox talks about the horrible sounds that they heard during the last night of Macbeth. So maybe Macbeth and Lennox, they must be guarding outside, and Macbeth goes and he wants to awake the king while Lennox talks about the horrible sounds that they heard in the night to Macbeth. Macbeth rushed and informed that Duncan is murdered, and they rushed to the scene. So Macbeth is acting and pretending that he doesn't know anything. He is as surprised as Macduff and Lennox. So Macduff, he rushed from the chamber of the king and informed that Duncan is murdered, and they together rushed to the scene, and Lennox informed that since the guard's face and daggers are covered in blood, they have committed the crime. So Macbeth and Lady Macbeth wanted everyone to believe that the guards committed this crime, and that's why beforehand Lady Macbeth drugged them and covered their face with Duncan's blood, and the dagger was also left along with them. So Lennon, for the first impression, Lennon informed maybe guards have committed this crime, and Macbeth kills both of them. But Macduff questioned his act, but he said he did it because of his loyalty to the late king. And Malcolm and Donalbain, as soon as their father got murdered, they are the next crown bearers, or either of them will be the next king. So it's not safe for them there. So Malcolm and Donalbain flee the palace as soon as possible to England and Ireland respectively. So Malcolm flee to England and Donalbain to Ireland. So Act 2, Scene 4 follows that. Rose and old man talks about the recent developments. So Rose and a gentleman, nobleman there, Rose and another old man talks about the recent developments, and Macduff arrives to them as reveals his suspicion about the two sons of Duncan as they immediately departed from the scene. So Macduff comes, and he was so suspicious about Malcolm and Donalbain because as soon as the murder of their father, they flee from the palace, flee from the castle as soon as possible. So that actually aroused a suspicion in the mindset of Macduff. So he was talking that to Rose and old man. Rose also says that makes Macbeth the king of Scotland. So Rose immediately says that, see, if in the absence of Malcolm and Donalbain and king is no more, so the nearest kinsman of Duncan is Macbeth. So that makes Macbeth the king of Scotland. Act 2 ends there. Act 3, Scene 1, Macbeth is crowned as king, and Banquo suspects that Macbeth has committed some foul act to become king. So Banquo is already aware about the prophecies made by the witches, and he also knows that Macbeth was quite possessed and occupied, and he was taking that prophecies very seriously. So Banquo suspected that Macbeth, while the king was in his castle, Macbeth has committed some foul acts to become the king. But Banquo couldn't do anything and speak it loudly, publicly, because Macbeth is now the king of Scotland, and he is very powerful. He is not just a nobleman who is not just a soldier anymore, but he is the king. He has the power. So even though he suspects, he didn't do anything, and he remembers about the prophecies and secretly decided to commit true, but it's not going to commit anything false to achieve it. So Banquo, he now realizes that, see, one after another the prophecies are coming true. Secretly, Banquo also desired for all these prophecies to come true, because his sons are going to be the kings of Scotland. But even though he wants them to be the kings, he determined that he is not going to do or not going to commit anything foul to achieve it. See, that makes him more noble and worthy. And Macbeth and Lady Macbeth came and met him, and he invites him to the evening banquet. So Macbeth and Lady Macbeth comes, so both of them king and queen now. So a banquet will be there after their coronation ceremony. So Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, both of them invited Banquo for be as a guest in the banquet. And Macbeth's solloquy follows. So when he is alone after that, Macbeth reveals his thoughts in the solloquy, and he reveals his plan to kill Banquo, whom he considers as a potential enemy, as one who knows about the prophecies. And according to the prophecies, Banquo's sons are going to become the kings of the land, and he doesn't want to happen. And he calls two murderers and asked them to kill him that day itself. So even though he invited Banquo to his evening banquet, he calls two murderers and asked them to kill Banquo that day itself. And Macbeth felt no guilty or double-mindedness about killing him. So he was so double-minded, confusing and horrified even to think about killing Duncan, right, if you remember. But this time when he wanted to kill his own kind of friend and one of the noble men that is there in the country, Banquo, Macbeth felt no guilty or double-mindedness about killing Banquo. Act 3, Scene 2nd. Lady Macbeth realized that her husband has changed and he is more determined to the title, and he now gained. So Lady Macbeth, she knows her husband and she is observing the changes happening in her husband, and Lady Macbeth now knows that, you know, he is now more determined to maintain the title that he now gained. He doesn't want to go it away from him, and he is now more cherishing this power more and more, and she wants him to go away from all those disturbing thoughts and enjoy his gust. Act 3, Scene 3. The murderers confront Banquo and Fleance on the road leading to the palace. So Banquo and Fleance, they were heading towards the banquet hall in the palace. So the murderers confront them, and you know, they set upon Banquo and kills him, but Fleance escapes. So as ordered, Banquo was killed by the murderers, but Fleance managed to escape the murder. It has to be like that, because according to the prophecy, Banquo's sons will become kings. So Fleance must escape if the prophecies are going to be true. Then Act 3, Scene 4. The banquet begins and Macbeth saw the murderers at the door and happy to hear that Banquo is killed, but upset about the escape of Fleance. So he was happy. So as the banquet was progressing, he saw Macbeth saw the murderers at the door, and he went there and he was happy to hear the murder of Banquo, but he was upset about the escape of Fleance, because he knows that his son, not Banquo himself, but his sons are going to be the king of Scotland. And Macbeth sees the ghost of Banquo sitting in his chair, and he was panicked. So what happened when he returned from the murderers after hearing the death of Banquo? It is sure that Banquo is no more, and everyone was noticing the absence of Banquo there by then. And Macbeth, he saw that in one of the chairs Banquo's ghost is sitting with full of blood from on his face and everywhere, full of blood, and no one else could see him because Banquo's ghost is appearing only before Macbeth, and even Lady Macbeth could not see him, and he got panicked. Lenos asked about his discomfort. So after seeing ghost of Banquo, he was so discomfort and he was acting so insane before the guest in the banquet hall, and Lady Macbeth also tries to comfort him but could not find any way to comfort him, so he left the hall immediately. So Lady Macbeth, even though she doesn't know what happened exactly, what sight he saw, everybody knows that Macbeth is so horrified by seeing something, and nobody knows it was Banquo's ghost appeared before him with full of blood from his head to toe. So Lady Macbeth, even though she tried to comfort him, nothing really comforted him, so he stormed out of the banquet hall immediately. And Lady Macbeth didn't believe what he just saw, and Macbeth expresses his fear of the future as he was committed many crimes. So even though Macbeth was determined to kill Banquo, now he expresses his fears to Lady Macbeth and says that even though he was determined to kill him, he is fearful about their future because he has committed many crimes that he is aware of, and he is not guilty while he was committing it. Act 3, Scene 5. The three witches meet Hecate in the midst of thunder, and she scolded them to contacting Macbeth without consulting them. So Hecate is the queen of these witches, and Hecate actually didn't really directed these three witches to go and meet Macbeth, and so that Hecate scolded them for not consulting beforehand with her before meeting Macbeth. And she found that he has used them for his own selfish benefits, and now she will destroy him. And she says that the feeling of careless confidence is the chiefest enemy of human beings, and she wants to ruin Macbeth through his self-deception. So Hecate now seems to tell a wisdom here, that careless confidence is the chiefest enemy of human beings. So careless, and every other ambitious human being possesses a careless confidence at times. So that is the greatest, chiefest enemy of every other human beings. And because of that, because that careless Macbeth is carelessly confident, she wants to destroy Macbeth through his own weak point. So that was Hecate saying. And Act 3, Scene 6 follows. Lennox and other lords are speaking each other, and they discuss about the recent developments and news about Macbeth. So Lennox and other noblemen, they are talking casually, and they are talking about the recent developments and the change in the the new king and all. So, and they are also talking about a news about Macbeth. And Lennox's friend gives the news that Macbeth had gone to England to help Malcolm, and together with Northumberland and Seward, to restore peace and normalcy in the country. So Macbeth was initially suspicious about Malcolm and Donalbain, but later, because of the strange behavior of Macbeth started to doubt the intentions and doubt Macbeth and his deeds and killing of the guards before questioning them and all. So he went to England because Malcolm is there, and Malcolm is the eldest son, and he wanted to help Malcolm there in England, and together with Northumberland and also Seward is Macbeth's son, and they all together wanted to restore peace and normalcy, order in Scotland. So we know that Macbeth is going to be against Macbeth in future. So Act 3 ends there. Now begins Act 4, Scene 1. Macbeth comes to the witches to have an answer to his questions in the presence of Hecate. So now Macbeth again want to have a discussion of his future with the witches. So he wanted to have some answers for his question in the presence of Hecate, and various apparitions appeared before him. And the first apparition of an armed head asked him to beware of Macbeth. First, what he saw the first apparition as an armed head. Armed head is speaking to him, and that armed head asks him to beware or stay away or safe from Macbeth. Macbeth is going to be a potential threat to your position. The second apparition of the bloody child tells him that no man born of woman shall harm him. So this is a great comfort for him, because every other human being is born out of a woman's womb, right? So second apparition was like a bloody child, a child with whole child with the blood all over its body. It tells him that no man who is born out of a woman shall harm him. The third apparition of a child crowned with a tree in his hand tells him that he will never be vanquished until great Birnam wood moved to high Dunsinane Hill. So Scotland, the palace of the king situated in Dunsinane Hill. Okay, so Birnam wood is there, quite away from Dunsinane Hill. So the third apparition, there is a child crowned with and a tree in his hand, tells him that he will not get harmed until the great forest Birnam will move to high Dunsinane Hill. So it is so distant, and this is not humanly possible. So it actually comforted him. And Macbeth also wanted to know whether Banquo's children would ever become kings. Then there is an apparition of 8 kings. The last has a glass in his hands, and Banquo's ghost follows them. So anyway, whatever he does, whatever he is going to do, and however he is going to be there, he will be the king, but still Banquo's sons are going to be the kings, future kings of Scotland. So the fourth apparition is like 8 kings, one after another, following each other, and the last has a glass in his hands, and Banquo's ghost follows them. And Macbeth loses his temper after seeing it, and he curses the witches, and they vanishes. And Lennox arrives, and he vows to kill Macbeth and wipe out his line. So Lennox, now Macbeth is moving against the crown, so Lennox arrives and he vows to kill Macbeth and wipe out his line. Act 4, scene 2 begins. This scene happens in Macbeth's castle, where Lady Macbeth and her son discusses about his father, while Rose arrives and tell about the bad times. The messenger comes and asks them to go somewhere safe immediately, but they could not escape and killed by the murderers. So entire family of Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, Macbeth's wife, and their sons, all of them got murdered by the murderers arranged by Macbeth. And he is committing one crime after another in order to maintain his titles, okay, and he is not guilty about it, like the first time that he was committing a crime of murder. Act 4, scene 3, Malcolm checks Macbeth's sincerity by telling that he has many faults to become a king. So Malcolm, even though he is in exile in England, and he is now checking the sincerity of Macbeth and his intention to help Malcolm, and Macbeth's sincerity was checked by Malcolm by telling that he has many faults to become a king. But Macbeth burst into patriotism and cried that the last chance for a good ruler of Scotland is destroyed. And he heard about Macbeth's murder of his wife and son, and he vows to avenge upon Macbeth. And Malcolm feels that it is the right time to attack Macbeth. So they plan to attack Macbeth. So there ends Act 4. Now begins Act 5, Scene 1, Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene. So you have to remember, in Scene 1 of Act 5, we have Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene. See, while Macbeth was guiltlessly doing crimes one after another, Lady Macbeth's mental ability is declining. She is becoming insane, and she could not sleep, and she is walking the whole night, every night, with a candle burning in her hand. The whole night she walks in the sleep, holding a lighted candle and washing her hands several times. See, while she was putting the dagger and the blood stains all over the guards, all over the face of the guards, so she was actually the face of the murdered King Duncan, which actually remained, that side actually remained of her own father, okay. So it was like her own father's blood was stained in her hand, and she was continuously washing her hands several times in order to wipe away this blood stain that her insane mind is imagining. Her long kept secrets revealed through her acts. So while she was washing her hands, she murmuring, and the attendants and the servants and the doctors attending her actually got revealed the whole deeds and secret acts that she has committed, okay. Scene 5, Act 2. The Scottish insurgents are on their march towards Birnam to meet their allies from England. So in Scotland itself, there were many people who were against Macbeth and the deeds done by Macbeth. So they went to Birnam to meet their allies from England. A conversation about the general dissatisfaction among the people about Macbeth's rule progresses between Caethians and Agnes. So people are conversing among themselves about the dissatisfied rule of Macbeth over the country, and they also discuss about the distracted state and the strange fears of Macbeth. So they are actually discussing that about the strange things and strange mental status of Macbeth as well. So everyone more or less clear that Macbeth has committed the crime of killing the late King Duncan. Act 5, Scene 3, Macbeth believed in the prophecy of the witches and neglected the chances of threat. So everyone was giving their warnings about the potential threat that they are facing. But Macbeth fully believed the prophecy that, first of all, no man who came out of the womb of a woman can harm him, and unless or until Birnam Forest come to the high Dunsinane hills, nothing will happen. Nobody is a threat to him. So he actually believed, and because these two things are quite it is not humanly possible to happen, right? So he fully believed in that prophecy, and he remained absolutely negative about all the chances of threat. And the doctor comes to him and reports about Lady Macbeth's mental condition, but soon he was dismissed. Then Act 5, Scene 4, Malcolm and his friends arrived at Dunsinane and ordered a clever plan. So they both arrived at Dunsinane, but they cannot, just like directly, they cannot go and attack King Macbeth, right? So he asked his soldier to cut boughs from Birnam wood. This is how Birnam Forest, Birnam wood will come to high Dunsinane hills. Okay, so he asked Malcolm asked his soldiers to cut the boughs and branches from Birnam wood and hold them before them as a distraction, as a hiding thing. They can hold this wood, branches of the trees from the Birnam wood, and they can move little by little by holding that. Okay, that was their plan. And the Act 5, this is how Birnam wood will come to high Dunsinane hills. Act 5, Scene 5. Macbeth learns about his wife's suicide. So Lady Macbeth commits suicide in this scene 5 of Act 5, and his soliloquy follows about his reflection about life. So we can see that as soon as he heard the suicide of his wife, Macbeth does a soliloquy about his thoughts and reflections about life. And Macbeth heard the shocking news that Birnam wood is moving towards, and he feared his disastrous end is at hand. And Macbeth wishes to fight till the end. But even though he knows and he fears his disastrous end is at hand, Macbeth wishes to fight till the end and be a brave soldier that he was always been. In Act 5, Scene 6, Malcolm has given the command of one half of the army to Siward and his son, while the other half is commanded by him and Macbeth. Act 5, Scene 7, Macbeth was confident when Macbeth approached him, as no man born out of his mother's womb can harm him, but Macbeth revealed that he was born in a cesarean process, ripping his mother's womb. This actually broke Macbeth's confidence, because Macbeth was confident when Macbeth approached him to have a fight, because he cannot be defeated, because no man who came out of his own mother's womb can harm him. But when he said this to Macbeth, Macbeth revealed that, see, I have not naturally come out of my mother's womb, because I was born in a cesarean process, ripping his mother's womb, and he came out of that and entered into this world. And Macbeth enters with Macbeth's head, and that means that Macbeth got defeated, and the assembled lords salute Malcolm, and they hailed Malcolm as King of Scotland. So in that way the play ends, and Macbeth met with his tragic end. Now let's see the themes of the play. It is a tragedy of character. So tragedy of character means the character features of Macbeth led to the tragedy, not mainly the acts or events happening in the play, but the character of Macbeth led to the tragedy of the tragic hero and tragedy of moral order, and witchcraft and evil in another theme, then trust, insanity, ambition, desire for power. These things are the themes of the play. And so that's all about Macbeth and its major events happening in each act and scenes. I hope this was clear and sufficient for you to understand the story. And also don't hesitate to leave your comments in the comment section, and you can mention the important events happening and also the important characters and themes in the comment section, along with your queries and suggestions and impressions about the video. And if you want more study materials related to any topics related to UGC NET English, visit my channel, subscribe to my channel, and also visit my website like I said earlier. And don't forget to have the free trial, and also follow me in Instagram, and the Instagram ID is right here, ligimaria90. That is my Instagram ID, where I am sharing really more study materials such as study cards, notes, and also short videos and reels. And also you can message me if you want to know further about the courses and its fee structure and other materials. And those who are entering into either of the courses that I am providing there in the website, they will get weekly test and personalized study guidelines and timetable to follow, so according to your desirable time. And also once you message me, I will tell you the details. So, and that's the end of this video lecture, and let me meet in the next video. Until then, have fun with the literature, and thank you for listening. Bye bye.